I think that there are some universals to pivoting, and I've pivoted a lot. So even within some of my careers, you don't
Mhm.
know what there is until you're in that career. And then you say, oh, well, I kind of think what they're doing over there is interesting. How do I get to that part within that
I love
umbrella?
that.
So yes, I feel like I have a lot to say on that
Okay.
subject.
Welcome to this week's episode of Surgeon Interrupted. I am absolutely over the moon. We have Audrey Bellezza here in studio with us today. She's a brilliant TV producer turned rom-com author. And who better to really dive deep on the topic of portfolio careers, right? We're going to be talking all things professional pivots, reinventing ourselves as many times as we need to, and of course, a very relevant part of Audrey's, current worldview, the current era and chapter that she's in, is that after celebrating her 50th birthday at a roller skating rink, she was very quickly thereafter diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And part of her journey as an ALK-positive lung cancer patient has involved, of course, seeking out multiple medical opinions nationally. And then, in addition to undergoing, treatment and medical care, creating Love for Lungs, an incredible group that really does advocacy, provides resources for everyone to learn a lot more about, again, this whole family of lung cancers that will impact, right? Not the classic, quote unquote, the old paradigm of what we think of when we think of lung cancer patients, which would maybe be like older male smokers. So thank you so much for being here. Cannot wait to get into it. Welcome to Surgeon Interrupted, Audrey.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. That was wonderful.
So, what I would really just love to start with, I mean, can you share with us a bit your TV producer era? Because my understanding is that you put decades into that first big career. And it's very cool. It's very cool work. Like, myself as a doctor, many of us, we don't know what that was like.
Yeah. I mean, I could write a whole book about all of it, but it's so interesting. I started my career as first I started as an intern, and that is how I got the job. And when I started, I got an internship at the Food Network, and it was hard to get the internship, and it was hard to get hired after. But once I did, then I was in this world of
Hmm.
television production. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in TV. And I didn't think I wanted to work in food. I didn't know that world. So this was before they had all these chefs in the kitchen helping. I mean, I was like handling food and making things look nice. It's wild.
Mm.
Randomly, my mother was actually a food writer. So that was her career. So
Wow.
she reviewed restaurants and ski resorts and, for Q Magazine, which was part of New York Magazine at the time in the 60s. I would call her and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's part of starting out a career. You just kind of fake it till you make it. And I kind of figured it out, and I started out as an intern, and then I moved up to a production assistant. And then I started working on all the different shows. And this was in the beginning when the Food Network stars who are now famous weren't famous. Nobody knew, nobody even watched the channel. There were it was like The Office, like the TV show The Office. There was like 100 people working there. Everybody was dating everybody. It was so much fun. And I learned my craft. I learned how to do an interview. I learned how to, mic someone up. I learned how to tell a story. I learned linear editing.
Hmm.
It was 5 years of education, being staff at the Food Network, met the best, some of my closest friends that I'm still friends with. After I was at the Food Network, I was staff, and then they started giving out the shows that they were doing to different production companies. So then I started jumping around to different production companies, and you just got your job sort of word of mouth. You did well in one job, you moved to another job. So I stayed under the umbrella of the Food Network and cooking shows for another 5 years and had the time of my life. I learned about television. I learned about food. I learned about chefs. I learned everything. I learned how to be a good boss. Because
Hmm.
I started to move up, and then I became a showrunner and a director, and suddenly I'm commanding a team of 30 people out in the field, and we're shooting with a chef then you learn how to navigate that world and who to hire the next time and
Mhm.
who's the best camera operator. Anyway, so I learned that whole world and cooking shows, and I loved it. I absolutely, it was amazing. And then after that, I started to branch out from food and do all
Mhm.
types of lifestyle programming. So I was working on wedding shows or baby shows. I worked on a baby story for 2 years where I was in the delivery room for, at
Oh my
hospitals that would
gosh.
let us in. Then I met my husband, and after being in the New York dating scene and finally finding a good
Mhm.
guy, I got married, and I realized I couldn't really travel all over the country. Sometimes, you know, the
Right.
I just couldn't do it anymore, and so I had to pivot, and I
Mhm.
was within this. All I knew was being a TV producer, directing shows, being out in the field, like, that's what I knew, and I'm like, "What am I gonna do that's less
Less travel.
time?" Yeah, let's travel, that's more flexible, and so I interviewed at a production company, and I ended up I had to take a pay cut. I mean, and also I look young, so they didn't realize how much experience I had. But at the time, I'm like, you know what? This is what I
Yeah.
have to do. I'm used to living on nothing in Manhattan. I was used to it for a while, and so I'm like, we can do this again. And so I had to pivot, and it was worth it. And I ended up moving into television development. So I
Hmm.
got the show before that. I got the show when it was already created and there was a whole world before that. And they'd say, go make it. But there was a whole years of other production that happened, which was television development. And so I started to learn that world. And that was coming up with ideas from scratch,
Mhm.
looking at the landscape of television and saying, what does this channel need? What does this channel need? And pitching. So I was pitching Animal Planet shows. I was pitching baby shows. I was pitching everything. I was in Pittsburgh at the Allegheny County Jail doing a story on the women guards there with my now best friend Emily, who I ended up
Mhm.
writing novels with.
Right.
But, I learned all these different I went to all these different places and I got to learn all these new things under television development. So then I started doing that, getting a show on the air from television development. It's like on a year and you pitch
Right.
30 shows. It's
Wow.
really hard. And by the end of let's see, I did that for a long time too. I started my own company doing that. I mean, it ranged the gamut of doing different things within television development,
Mhm.
from like learning it to starting my own company. So yeah, and after a while, the pandemic hit,
Yes,
and then
exactly.
that's when things changed.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of take a quick break to call out, like, that's an incredible journey. What you've just described, starting out as an intern on the Food Network all the way through. And I think that that's just a great place for us to pause, is up through the pandemic. And what's so fascinating is that I actually do see parallels between your journey in television within even initially starting off like on set in the field, that type of work, and then transitioning into the development side. Because what I see happen to a lot of female physicians, certainly female surgeons, but a lot of physicians that I talk to, is that we sign up for our job at, about 20, right? 20, early 20s, we commit to medical school. That's 4 years in medical school. And then residency is 3 to 5 years. And again, every woman, every woman in medicine who I know is not afraid of hard work. They love, we went into medicine for a specific reason. We wanted to contribute to society in that way. I think all women who choose a profession and a career and they dedicate a decade to it, like, that's how they are choosing to contribute to society. Then what happens is, by the early 30s, kind of the end of training, and now you're just in practice. This is just life. And in early 30s, they have children. And it's not uncommon that this act of settling down, finding a spouse, having a child, there is a shift in priorities that occurs that, honestly, it shouldn't take us by surprise, but I do think that for me and a lot of my contemporaries, it like took us by surprise. I could not have, when I was 20 years old, predicted the person that I am now in my mid-30s. Like, so
Mhm.
I think that what's really interesting is that this is an existing moment in medicine. So how do we pivot? Because that's really tough. When you're a woman who just sank over a decade into something and the career traditionally looks one way, there's a lot of different people who either some of them find different groups to join, where perhaps there's like a lot more women within the group call can be structured differently or more favorably than other times. But I just wanted to kind of say, like, I can relate to
Mhm.
what you're describing even more than you know. And the last thing I wanted to call out are the transferable skills. Because even when you were
Mhm.
sharing the skill sets that you were building on all of those sets, on all of those shows, obviously, I know that we've already given away the ending, but the ability to craft stories the way that
Mhm.
you did it from every angle, from like inception to also making it happen when you're shooting, obviously, I'd love to hear how that gave you an incredible foundation when you then went on your author journey, if that
Yes.
sounds fair.
It it does. Thank you for that. It is interesting how universal all of have we all feel as women trying to juggle all the things that we want. And when you're younger, what you think you want, and then as it changes, how to fit round
Mhm,
peg square hole. Crafting stories as a
mhm,
television producer.
mhm,
There's so many skills as a television producer that I apply to regular life and to
mhm,
all the things that I'm trying to do as I move forward in my career and grow as a person. And yes, one of the things was crafting story. One of the things is just like working with others, and understanding hierarchy. Like I'm in charge now. I'm doing this, and feeling um, confident to tell people what to do. Feeling strong, like
yeah,
I might not know what I'm talking about, but I know what I want. And you can. So I think that having that kind of confidence is and drive. If you combine those things, you can do anything. So, and if you have a support too, you need a lot of support. But
exactly.
those things are important.
Exactly, and you mentioned managing teams, like that transition when you went from your first 5 years into your next 5 years. Many of us have to experience that, going from how to be a great team player and like a mid-level or an intern up into, yeah, the leader. And the other thing that comes to mind is pitching, because even all that time you spent pitching shows, pitching
Yes.
is a real skill that, like, as doctors, we are not taught that formally. Do you feel like, I mean, even when you went into your later era of starting your own company, I mean, that pitch skill set, pitching yourself and pitching all of your projects.
It's yes, all the skills that I've learned in television and I have applied towards being an author and towards running this nonprofit. They're all
Mhm,
applicable. And
mhm,
the the skills, like when my girlfriend Emily and I, one of my best friends, she and I during the pandemic had to pivot. We were both TV producers and we couldn't get into people's homes. We couldn't do anything. So she had already been writing and she said we should write something together. So we started kind of collaborating and working using the skills that we had used forever to work together and come up with something. And it was so funny how organized we were. I will do an outline. Well, I will do this. I will do this. Like we just immediately fell into it. We knew what to do to create a TV show. So we knew what to do, how to collaborate to create a book together. So we created our episodes, but they were chapters. And then we picked something that we wanted to do that we could both kind of draw from that would be like a Bible, if you will. So we decided to do a modern adaptation of a Jane Austen novel of Emma because we love that book so much. And so our first book is Emma of 83rd Street. And it's a modern retelling set in New York City. And it was sort of like this homage to the city we love so much that we couldn't go to because everything was shut down. And we just sort of wrote this book for each other, um, you know, uh, keeping on deadlines and
mhm.
being
Yeah,
accountable to each
the
other.
project management that you guys, of course, had, the
Yes.
workflows, the
Work
systems, processes.
the
I mean, I
systems.
love this.
Yes, the systems and it was like imagine a movie montage, we're like typing, sending, homeschooling with the pods with our children, making dinners, like not talk, put your masks on. We're doing,
Wow.
taking it was, trying to do self-care. It was and everyone is meeting as friends on Zoom and
Right.
understanding all of that. And so it was a time and it was a bubble that we lived in for a couple years. And we wrote that book and then we got an agent because we finished it and we thought, this is kind of great. We weren't thinking this is going to get published. We just thought we need to do something. We're just sitting in our homes and we're these
Right.
little creative tops like spinning and we need to do something with it. So we ended up getting an agent and we ended up signing with gallery books at Simon and Schuster, and
Hmm.
it was a dream come true. We couldn't believe it. So we did our first book and then we wrote our second book. And then in the middle of promoting the second book and being sort of on a press tour and writing the third one, that's when I got diagnosed. So, and then there was more pivoting, but the skills of storytelling from my television days we used in our writing. We could tell this story, and
Hmm.
then as I moved into creating this nonprofit,
Hmm.
it's still there's similar things that I'm pulling from. There's a story behind everybody's lung cancer. There's a story behind what's happening with lung cancer in the medical world. And there's a way to tell it to spread awareness so that it's palatable, not just a bunch of numbers.
Absolutely. To be effective and compelling. I think that the story is key. Again, going back to project management skills, though, like all the moving pieces at a nonprofit and what you have to coordinate and run. I mean, absolutely. I love it. I know that I think it's hard for all of us to see it when we're in the middle of the journey. Hopefully we do take time to
Mm,
like get our flowers
that's
and
true.
appreciate those skills. But certainly I look back at your past several eras and it makes perfect sense, right? No experience was wasted. I love that mantra. I have to remind myself of that all the time. And I just think that you built such a beautiful portfolio career. We love
Thank you.
to see the multi-hyphenate professional because then it kind of shows us what's possible.
And just to add to this, thank you. Thank you so much. It wasn't easy. A couple things. I have this amazing support system and I have, a lot of people I can draw on when I'm feeling down. And every day isn't easy. And getting these careers and pivoting was really hard. And there were times where I just was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. No one cares, and you just start listening to that devil on your shoulder when you should be listening to, the positive inner voice that is telling you you can do this, or your mother, whatever, whatever
Yes,
that I
exactly.
had.
Our loved ones who are nicer to
Our
us
loved ones,
sometimes than we can be to
and
ourselves.
we are.
I mean, I'm fascinated by you and Emily. You guys are iconic. This is like the dream. I'm
Really?
fortunate to be at a point in my life where I have colleagues who I just adore and look up to. And if, if the more that we get to do these types of project-based work together, it's awesome. It's magical when you find a partnership
Oh
like
my
that.
god.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how long had you and Emily just worked together and known each other prior to the book? And then I'd actually even like to go a little bit deeper into the book writing process, like the timeline, because every author's journey is so different, but it's so cool what you and Emily did. And I would love to know you guys had this system nailed down, but again, you were battling COVID, the homeschooling pods, all this stuff. So like, yeah, all the timelines.
Oh, I love it. I love this question. I would love to talk about Emily. I love Emily. She is the best. I got so lucky. She's an amazing partner to have, and I just got really lucky. So I would love to tell you our story.
Yeah.
I met her when I started pivoting to television development. I
Yes.
remember when she walked in and I was like, who is this girl? And we were in a New York production house and she had television development background. She had worked at History Channel and MTV, and which was super cool at the time. So we were all in an office with three other women and one guy, Zoran. So the six of us became best friends because we were doing everything together. And
Mhm.
Emily and I just happened to be kind of hitting those same life milestones at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. She got married in 2007. I got married in 2008. She had her daughter 9 months before I had my son, and then she had a second and I had a second a couple years later. So we sort of like hit things at the same time. And then when I started my company, a development company, it was with her and another woman there, Nicole. And so it was Emily, Nicole, and I, and we were doing this. We started this development company, and we were trying to develop shows ourselves because we thought we could do this. We don't need this umbrella company to help us. We could do it
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And then the pandemic hit. And then Emily ended up moving to Texas for her husband's job. So now she's in Texas. She's so far away. I can't get to her because of the pandemic. I can't actually get to her, but we have Zoom. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when it all kind of started. That we're talking. We're sitting there on the phone being like, what am I going to do? This is horrible. My kids are home all day. Like, we have nothing to do. I was like, we're all on lockdown. We're really not going anywhere. And so she and I would talk a lot. And that's when it started. These ideas started coming out. And I had been writing some things on the side, and I already knew, had self-published a couple books
Mm-hmm.
that were amazing. So I had sent her some of my work, and I think it was late at night. There was wine, she says. And we were we were texting and typing, and she said, we really could do this together. We know how to write stories. We know, but what should we write? And then that's when we started kind of brainstorming. And then it became like we were in one of our brainstorming sessions in television, where you would throw
Yes.
things up on a wall and just sort of come up with ideas. And what could we could do this, we could do this. And, we came up with a million ideas, and then we kind of narrowed it down and got to work. I was lucky to come up with a partner who keeps me accountable, that I know her work ethic and I know my work ethic. And I know that we wanted to make sure that we didn't let the other person down. And we were writing these chapters. So the way we started this process is that we did an outline, and
Mm-hmm.
we figured out the entire book. So
Yep.
what it
So
would
the
have.
first book, Emma, yep, did the
Yeah, Emma of
full
83rd
outline.
Street, the full outline. So we did the full outline, and whatever, it came out to like 28 chapters or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured it out like, this chapter's got to be this, and we're going to do dual point of views, so we're going to tell George Knightley's story, we're going to tell Emma's story, Emma Woodhouse's story, and we'll go back and forth. And how about you do chapter 1, I'll do chapter 2. Oh, should we have a prologue? Yeah, well, I'll do the prologue. Okay. And so we wrote this book, and I was just trying to make Emily laugh, and I would send her something and be like, she's going to think this is so funny. And then we were like, let's make it spicy. Let's make it fun. Let's like really go all out for this romance novel. If because I think maybe right
Yeah.
towards the end, we're like, this could be something. Let's polish it. So we finished it, and we thought it
Mm-hmm.
was the best thing ever. And then when we got it to an editor, what was interesting is that they took it from, we thought it was great. It was really probably at like a C, and they made it an A. And it was such a beautiful transformation, and working with this wonderful editor that we had, Molly Gregory at Gallery Books, who kind of just helped us understand and gave us an education in a world we didn't know, which was editing and book publishing. So now we
Yes.
knew that.
And what was the timeline, do you think, from really
Oh, yeah.
conception, throwing it at the wall, to Molly, for instance, when you guys finished
It
your
was
first
it
product?
was pretty short. It was about, I think the book took us about a year to write. So I would say it was a year and a half. That whole
Wow.
timeline was about a year and a half, which is very short.
Yes.
Just so we know how lucky, we know how hard it is. And yeah, we were very
No,
excited.
I think that that's brilliant. And definitely, please, please, on my count, don't downplay it. I think, but here's what I would really hope that all of us can take from this, which is that, yes, I do think that in many ways it's incredible. I just get goosebumps hearing about your guys' creative process together. And to an extent, even my literary agent says this. He calls his work a legalized form of gambling. He says, when I go and I send my proposals into the publishers every day, like, it's going to the slots, right? It's going to the casino.
Yeah,
So in a sense, you guys won the publishing
we did.
lottery. However, what I hear and what it's so important for everyone to see is like, I mean, you guys not only worked together for so long prior to that, but pre-COVID, you guys started a production company together. I mean, like, there are so many huge
I forget
creative and
about that.
entrepreneurial, yeah, like swings
Me
that are
too.
taken. No one sees usually the ones that don't win the big lottery, right? Like, so to me, this is much more of a story of longitudinally, creatively, entrepreneurially, completely putting yourself out there in a bunch of ways. It's awesome to see this author era that like really absolutely took off, but I can just imagine without even knowing. I would love to hear more off screen and things like that about like your TV production company, but I mean that type of stuff. These are all big swings. And you and Emily had even taken big swings before, not even
And
alone.
failed. It's like it did okay. It's
Yeah.
like you have to fail to do well, to understand, to appreciate the highs.
Exactly. And not only that, but I have never heard of somebody winning the lottery with their first project. And that again goes back
Wow.
to just don't be discouraged. To me, it's like we put hundreds of things out there. And I love the old Stoic quote is, we cannot ensure success, but we can deserve it.
I love that.
And you and Emily, 100%. I mean, you guys, you deserved it. I'm so happy for you guys that you've had this author journey together.
Yeah, I think that we when we were in TV development, being in front of executives and being told no so many times and having these projects that were like writing a book. It's like you spent a year creating a perfect pilot, a perfect TV pilot with
Yeah.
the right host and the right everything. And it was hard and you did it. And then for someone to say, no, that's not the direction we're going right now. Or could you do it, but could you make it in over here with this person and totally change it? And you're like, oh, yeah, sure. No, I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna do that. So to have, um, creative freedom like this, that's what was different. For us to not have gatekeepers and people in, executive roles that you're like, "How did you get that job?" was amazing. So, though they said no to all those projects and then would do it another way with a different company, and you're like, "But that was my idea, but okay." But that's just the world of television,
Yeah.
and we actually write about that in our 3rd book. It's so funny, the protagonist, Anne, in our 3rd book, Anne of Avenue A, she's sort of this disillusioned television producer, and, and it's a second chance love story, and she ends up getting kicked out of her apartment, and her ex-boyfriend, Freddie, moves into the apartment, and he doesn't know it's her apartment, and it's like this whole lovely love story leading up to the holidays. Anyway,
I
um,
literally cannot wait to read your 3rd book, and I know I'd love if you wanna show us the
yeah.
covers. I think the cover art's gorgeous. Anne of Avenue A.
So this one is Anne of Avenue A. I'm going backwards. This is
Mhm.
based on Persuasion, and that just came out. And then this one was I'll go backwards, 2nd book. This is based on Pride and Prejudice, and I know this is backwards, but it's
Mhm.
Elizabeth of East Hampton, and it's great. I love that one holds a special spot for me. They all do, and this one's our first one, Emma of 83rd Street. Our 3rd one, this Anne of Avenue A, this
Mhm.
protagonist is a disillusioned television producer, so I very much relate to her, and then in the middle of writing this book is when I got diagnosed. So and then there was moments where at one point I was in the hospital, I was in the CCU. I had to deal with a million issues that I won't go into, but it was a horrible time. I mean, it still isn't so great, but we're feeling positive and being hopeful and all of that. But when I was writing a chapter on Thanksgiving while I was in the hospital, and I was feeling so horrible, and my main character, Emily, my main character, Anne, was going through a tough time also, and it was Thanksgiving, and I was like, the parallels with me and this woman. So and then at the end of the book, we have a QR code that leads to my, nonprofit, Love for Lungs, and I kinda tell a little bit of my story to our readers because I hadn't told anybody yet, and this
Mhm.
book felt like I was connected to it, so Emily and I decided this is where you're gonna write this in the acknowledgments and let people know what's going on, because we have amazing readers who love these books, and they've been so supportive.
Absolutely.
It's wild. So we wanted to let them know everything.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you sharing all of this with us, and certainly so to move into like the last and perhaps most important, most meaningful thing that we're here to talk about today, which is if you can tell us a little bit about your nonprofit, Love for Lungs. And then I know that you guys have a Galentine's event coming up, and we want to make sure that we can connect people to that.
Yes, I hope people know what Galentine's Day is.
Yeah.
I assume people know, but it's the day
Ye-
before Valentine's Day to celebrate your gal pals. So yes, in the middle of all this, I got diagnosed, and it took a year and easily convincing my husband and my brother to join me, and the three of us
uh,
created Love for Lungs, and we're a nonprofit that is dedicated to extending the lives and improving the lives of people with ALK-positive lung cancer through media and storytelling, and raising awareness and supporting and funding a life-saving vaccine out of Johns Hopkins through my doctor, Dr. Vincent Lamb. So it's kind of exciting. I thought that the disease I have is incurable. I have this ALK positive lung cancer. I'm on pills right now. I'm really lucky that I have a driver mutation lung cancer. And I take these pills, but these pills don't last forever, and you don't know when they will stop working. And my doctor, he is creating this he has created this vaccine. It's in patients already. So we want more clinical trials. We want to get more people to get this vaccine. I have not got it yet, and a lot of people haven't, and we want more people to get it. We want it to be really successful. So I saw a need for raising awareness and funds for this vaccine. And I saw that a lot of the other patients were doing something similar. There's foundations, there's nonprofits. The
mhm,
patients are the ones that are raising the money for this vaccine that my doctor has created, that he, put into, he administered the first shot in May of 2024. So it's out there, and we need more funding to continue. But I thought my incurable disease was incurable. And now there's this possibility that this vaccine will work, and I will just stay on my pills forever, and it won't mutate and become, a cancer that I can't control.
mhm.
So yeah, we have this foundation to do that, and we're doing all these really fun fundraisers. That's another thing I realized with as you're talking about pivoting,
Yeah.
fundraising is a
Yes.
lot like throwing a television production event. It is, okay, let's call on this person. Let's get the right people to make this event happen. We did
Yes.
something over the holidays, and now we're doing this Galentine's Day event. So it is a Galentine's Day love and lit silent auction, and it's going to be virtual, and anybody can go, and there will be a link on our Instagram and all over
Mhm,
the place, hopefully. And it's to benefit Love for Lungs. The event will have best-selling authors' books that are signed, fun little bundles of things that people will want to bid on, and there'll be things like there's some celebrities that are donating things. There's going to be some big trips. There's trips to St. Thomas and Tuscany and things that you might want to do with your gal pals. But there's all price points, and that will launch for 1 week starting on February 3rd. And you can go to my Instagram, our Instagram, there's my Instagram, which is Audrey Bellezza Writes, two L's, two Z's. Or
mhm.
you can go to, we would love, we're trying to build our community for Love for Lungs. So we would love it if you could follow us on Love for Lungs, which is our Love for Lungs at Instagram. And it's our love, the number four lungs on Instagram. And we'll have listings about the event.
Perfect. So we are linking this in the show notes, and you'll be able to go to the link and sign up for this incredible Galentine's Day event. I think that this work that you're doing is really important.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I hope people come in and look at all the fun items that we have and bid and be part of our community.
Absolutely. Well, Audrey, it has been nothing short of amazing to connect with you
Thank you.
today.
You
I
as
feel
well.
like I learned a lot, and and you've given all of us some good perspective, I think, regardless of what point in our own careers or professional journeys that we're in. I'd love to ask, are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with today?
I guess I was just thinking about imposter syndrome and to not let that hold you back and to know that everybody has it. It's a real thing. So you are good enough and you can do it. That's what I've been thinking about lately.
That's beautifully said, extremely pertinent for all of us, like in healthcare and medicine. I think this comes up a lot, and it is really inspirational to hear, like, right from a prolific best-selling author that it's okay. But I agree, we work through it. Like, I do feel like I experience it sometimes. I don't know that I really let it impact my actions
Yes.
meaningfully,
Yes.
even if it sometimes impacts some of my emotions.
Yes, I say go there and then acknowledge and then push it away and move forward as best you
Incredible.
can.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who listened to this episode of Surgeon Interrupted. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review. Until next week, remember, you can pivot as many times as you need to.